Hey Asa, you might remember I took a trip along the Columbia River this summer. Just a simple road trip. And, well, I started in Darrington. You can tell we started there because the first picture had that half pre exposed from being installed in the camera, and somehow then the next picture, which had a full frame being used to capture that mountain, is blurry as all get out. Anyway, I drove on Highway 20 over the mountains to the east side of Washington and ended up finding an island in the middle of Lake Roosevelt to set up my tent on. There's a very pretty view of Lake Roosevelt when you peek through the trees, and probably like 30 yards from my tent was just a pair of bald eagles hanging out in a tree. Nice. That first morning, like frankly every morning of this trip, I made instant oatmeal and instant coffee because I could make hot water on that camping stove. And I was able to sneak a really pretty shot of sunrise. Then, after a little bit of looking at the map and game planning what today would be, I set out to drive south along the river through Fort Spokane and ending up near Grand Coulee and Steamboat Rock. That's a little bit of spoilers. Fort Spokane was actually one of my favorite parts of this trip. It's mostly now a empty field, but there's still a few foundations, and yeah, I don't know. It's just cool. It's cool to think of, like most old things are.
The Davenport baseball players have distinguished themselves this season. Victory is perched upon their banner, and even the Fort Spokane team, skilled as it is, met its Waterloo at their hands.
Dude, we're in the middle of nowhere right now. All the weird back roads, but appreciate the flowers in the distance.
Here I am waiting for a Columbia River ferry. I've taken the ferries in the Puget Sound before, but I never even realized that they've got ferries going across the Columbia River on some of the state highways. So I was able to get pretty much a front row seat, get a few cool pictures. But I mean, it's just wicked. It's a lot shorter of a drive. Felt a bit windier being on the eastern side of the state, and they're also free. So I recommend taking a ride if you want. Of course, I have the obligatory Grand Coulee Dam shot. And this is Steamboat Rock, which is where I camped that next night. And could walk pretty much right up to this little beach and enjoy it. I was also trying to get some cool pictures of birds because birds move a lot, and so it's hard to get pictures of them. But I was impressed I actually caught this one at all. And here's a view of Steamboat Rock from my campsite. As I was leaving the Grand Coulee area the next morning, I found this weird concrete pavilion looking thing that had a view of the river and Grand Coulee and the dam, and just took a look.
Let's see if I can spot it. I think that that green building right there is where I got ice yesterday. So that's cool.
this will start a long series of this trip where I see dams and don't know what they are because there's like 10 or something of them along this river. And I found myself in Chelan. Never been. Didn't realize it was over here. But it was gorgeous, and they make great calzones.
Made it to Ginkgo Petrified Forest State Park. Funky. I was actually on a I-90 for a little bit. It was really disorienting. I'm also only like 2 hours from home, despite being gone for 3 days and having like 4 more of travel. So that's odd. I've been taking film photos. I want to try to get some of those flowers. See what we can see.
Yeah, these close-up photos turned out really well. Uh, B had gifted me a camera with a zoom lens, so I tried my hand at some macro photography, and yeah, I'm proud of how it turned out.
I got a picture of it. I almost forgot a video. It's Ginkgo. Have I mentioned I'm a sucker for park cabin buildings? Because there's one. Anyway, Asa, I got one. I have to apologize. This book is going to look like it went camping, dog-eared and stuff, and I apologize. But 2, I've been reading this for 2 days now. I've gotten through 300 pages, so I'm probably going to finish it.
So this happens every night when the sun sets on the mountains and all the air in the Cascades gets cold and it becomes denser. So it rolls down the mountainside over the campsite and onto the river, making those waves that are going towards the east side.
Well, it's just about gone now, but there's a little bit of alpenglow, so we'll see if I get that on film.
This is a miracle. I'm in my car. I locked myself out.
After taking a nap in my car, I kept on driving along the river to the McNary Dam, which is surprisingly one of the few dams I remember the name for. Then, while taking the freeway through the gorge, I snuck off onto what parts of Highway 30 weren't closed and took in the view.
So I just got here, and I'd really like a campfire, but I saw some buildings. It's just a nice covered building. This is funky. This is spooky. I love it.
And of course, even the bathroom building looked absolutely gorgeous. This is Beacon Rock State Park on Washington. It's about an hour, less than that, east of Portland, if you're wondering. And I absolutely loved it. I got a fire going and was planning a pretty nice dinner as far as camping goes.
Alright, not the greatest, but I'm trying my best to get a bed of coals under where I want the food to be cooked. So I've been having hot dogs almost every day for a while. So I really want to have this chili. This is 4.5 servings of chili. I'm going to make it, and I'm not going to eat it all, and I have to be okay with that. This is a treat.
The next day, I got a good view of the Bridge of the Gods that goes over the Columbia River and stopped before I started driving into Portland. I got dinner with friends and slept at Evan's apartment and got no footage of it, but I was in Portland. After driving from Portland to Astoria, I went to the Columbia River Museum and I found this guy who had cups that looked suspiciously like my own. Bastard. And then out back they had a dock where I thought I could point vaguely in the direction of my campsite, and it would be a cool shot. And another cool thing they had at the museum that you could tour was this light ship, which would just sit out at sea and be a lighthouse, but on the water instead of the land. Then it was lunchtime, and oddly enough, I had been recommended a place by the locksmith that got me back into my car. So this is a fish and chips place that is just in an old boat. While I was there, the mother and daughter working behind the counter were discussing the faraway and weird sounding place called Puyallup, where they have a fair every year. And the last big stop on my road trip was the Astoria Column. It was built to commemorate the Lewis and Clark Trail as kind of the endpoint where the Columbia meets the ocean, and I figured that made it a fitting endpoint for my trip along the Columbia River.
Is this Silo?
And frankly, the views were gorgeous. Then it was time to check out the campsite and walk over to that Pacific Ocean people keep talking about.
Oh shit.
Then I set up the very last fire of the trip. I opened up a beer I had bought specifically to celebrate, and I had the very last of these hot dogs. At least the very last I could stomach. Then I threw on the rest of the firewood onto the fire. I tried to get through as much of it as I could, and watched as it, like the trip, wound down. And I got one last film photo, this long exposure of the fire in the dead of night. That ends my trip. Asa, thank you for watching.